Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Before we begin this episode, I'm going to give you a bit of a viewer discretion warning for the mentally handicapped.
Oh goodness.
I'm going to say the R word. I'm going to uncensor the R word when I say it because I think it's very important.
Why? I know, but why? Just say mentally disabled.
There we go. See? I wanted that answer. No, I'm not going to uncensor
Yeah.
it. I just want to see your reaction to it.
Yeah,
No,
no,
okay.
I'm not. Yeah, no.
So about the discussion. The discussion is about the R word, though. More importantly.
Oh goodness.
Oh, I think I might peak my microphone. I changed the settings a little bit because I noticed I was a little
Are you
quiet.
watching the levels? Are you watching the levels?
I'm watching the levels. I'm also, a
Well,
lot more awake than I usually am, so.
that is
Oh,
true.
audio problem. Anyways, on to the important discussion. What does the R word mean to you as an autistic gentleman?
Uh, well, it's split into two camps. The one was the proper usage back in the day when it was used properly for what it was, like fire retardant, and all that good stuff. Um,
I think you know which one I'm talking about, though.
No, I know. That's why I'm saying it's split into two camps because it took me a while to understand what it meant when they said it to me.
Yes.
Um, it's definitely used to dictate somebody's lesser. Specifically, it was used a lot on me to dictate that I was a lesser person or a lesser human than other people. Not only would I be hearing it from people that I'd go to school with, which are high schoolers and middle schoolers, they're all awful, but like adults, and that's a big deal because adults are a high esteemed personage in your life growing up. No matter how much you hate authority, adults have lived through more, and you tend to mimic certain things you see and hear. Um, the word is a showcase of a failure uh, in the world's empathy.
So, I guess I might as well tell you, as an autistic person, my experience with this world. Now, I didn't learn I was autistic until I was in 7th grade. So, until then, I thought I was just a normal kid, even though I definitely was not thinking back. But to me, I thought I was a normal kid.
Right.
And after the 7th grade, I went to a school full of autistic people. I will say this openly. So, I I have been called the R word in the past, but to me, who thought it was kind of lumped into a lot of the other insults I got on a regular basis, because I got insulted a lot, a lot.
It's hard to recognize the importance of certain insults over others when there's so many and you're so young.
Exactly. So to me, the R word is just an insult like any other. It doesn't have super significant significance to me, but big but, and I cannot lie. I'm gonna turn down this down a little bit more because I'm peeking again. Um. I have been, since I went to a school with autistic people. I have seen that word. I've been surrounded by people who are deeply affected by that word, and I can empathize because I too am autistic. So, although I myself have never been uh affected by
You
it,
have not you've not been as heavily affected.
and I will say, when talking about the R word before, I have uncensored it. Even on this channel, did an episode where I talked about it, and I did not censor it. I should have at least done a viewer discretion before that episode. Whether we should censor the word or not, I'm still 50-50 on, but Joey has declared he does not want to hear it.
One sec.
I will not say it.
My audio cut out. How you've been having empathy around the word and because you've been around people who've been affected by it.
So, I'm still 50-50 about whether I should censor the word. but I do know I'm with somebody who is upset with it, so I am censoring the word.
Yeah,
Because
no,
I
it should
believe
be censored regardless on YouTube.
I believe, and I did do an episode where I talked about it and did censor. And I didn't do the warning. I kind of regret that, because I did discuss it when I was talking about it in the episode. I do believe that like hiding the word does give it more power than it probably
Uh,
should. But
but would you say the N word? You know?
yeah, well that was the discussion on the episode that we should make the R word the N word for autistic
Well,
people.
no,
But
like that's not, I'm not trying to categorize it here. I'm just trying to dictate that that's an example of no, hiding it does not give it power. Just not using it if it's not acceptable,
and you know what? That's a
or
fair point.
and certain amounts of censorship is acceptable in my mind. Just because no, it's sometimes like people who are like I'm okay with offending people are also just saying they're okay with being assholes,
Yes, and
and I'm not okay with that.
discussion leads me to the discussion on a certain VTuber who did say the R word and basically was like, "Well, I'm not part of a safe space." she,
Yeah, no, I mean, I only watch a handful of VTubers. I watch Aethelstein, Jan, and Iron Mouse. That's it.
so I'm keeping it vague on who it is. I don't want to, draw too much attention to it.
It's none of them. So
It might be
know that.
related to one of those you just said.
Yeah, no, I know they're related, but definitely it's not one of them.
Yes.
And let's be clear, they're part of groups. So you're gonna find one that's related to another, but they get dropped
Yes.
because it's a business.
Anyways, what was this saying? Anyways, so they said the R word, and their defense was, this isn't a safe space, and a lot of their people are like, it's just edgy humor. They do it all the time, like edgy humor. And I kind of want to dissect that a little bit. Like,
What is edgy humor?
yeah, what is edgy humor in regards to pissing people off like that?
I mean, edgy humor isn't built just to piss people off.
But in regards to pissing people off, is
in regards to pissing people off, people use that as an excuse. Definitely, that's how I feel about that. Because edgy humor is something that they say after the fact that they've been called out on something to try to excuse the ability to continue to say those somethings.
I think another thing I want to point out is the idea that you words, and I'm kind of calling myself out from like 5 minutes ago. Not even 5 minutes ago, like 3 minutes ago. The idea that what am I trying to say? Let me think. I need to say this right. The idea that you could say anything is kind of in an edgy way, and that should be okay. That like is kind of an I'm 14 and this is deep type mentality.
Well,
because I know a lot of middle schoolers who think like that.
No, I mean obviously, and I've worked with those kids.
So like, to me, I think this idea isn't. I don't think it's hostile to mentally disabled people. I think it's just childish, is what I think it is.
So let me dictate this to you. You can have something that's dictated as a childish mentality that's still hostile. They aren't separate.
I don't think it's separate, but I think it's
dictating that one group messed up the world is a very simplistic mentality that could be dictated as childish, but it wrought much destruction.
Yes.
So I don't want to give it less power by dictating that.
I don't want to give it less power like that either. I just want to think that like people who use edginess and generally are just trying to be like edgy for the sake of edginess are being childish, because at the end of the day I do believe in free speech, but I also believe that like if you are a mature and decent person, you will censor yourself.
Free speech is not free of consequences, and free speech has limits for good reason.
Exactly. God, these settings really made me a lot louder on the...
I'm not a huge fan of what people perceive should be free speech, which is the freedom to say whatever the fuck you want. Because you could say, I'm going to do this to this place. and it could be extremely hostile. And I am not for that. I am not for threats of violence in that manner. I am not for that. I just am not. It's reductive to dictate that that should be a way that things are dictated. It's idiotic to dictate that people should not be able to be held accountable for things like that. And it is childish to dictate that cancel culture is some magical monster that attacks people for no reason, as if out of nowhere.
And I would like to. What was I just thinking? God, my train of thought is derailing. Um,
Welcome.
I know. Welcome. You were complaining about last episode, and I'm complaining about this
Yeah,
episode.
I know. I mean, I have a lot of thoughts ready to go on this type of subject because me and Izzy
Oh,
used to
that's what
spar
I
on
was
this
about
stuff.
to say. So a lot of people say that it's okay to make fun of black people because I know white people or other black people who make fun of black people. And
That's
no,
a
no, no, shh,
2000
shh,
argument.
hold on. Let me finish my thought here. And um, I realized something, and I will never make fun of black people, but I'm also, but I make fun of autistic people and stuff. But I know where the line is. I feel like you can make fun of whoever you want if you know where the line is. Because there's a line between fun and hostile. And if you do not know where the line is, do not even come close.
I mean, fucking duh.
Like, you know
The
that
point.
there are some
The,
white people with the N word pass. Those people have mastered the
no,
line.
I see. I disagree with that, but for a different reason. See, that doesn't. That's not the same shit as just comedy to me. That's a word that needs to be given to the people that it hurt, so that they can't be hurt with it again. And
Yeah.
if we give it away while there's still people being hurt with that word, even, what the fuck are we even doing?
I think absolute mastery has to be given to you, not obtained through your own power. I guess to
See,
clarify what I mean by absolute mastery.
I mean, we're still a country, a world of racial bigotry, with Caucasian people being the leaders of it. So, like, and I'll be honest with you, Hispanic Americans in a lot of states that are like, I got here legally, are another example of bigots. Like, it's unfortunate. Like, just as an American looking, obviously, Caucasian people are the most racist people in the country by and large. But like, you get a lot of cross racism between people that are perpetuated against, and it perpetuates itself because we haven't actually attempted, as a nation, as a any of our, well, the onus is upon the Caucasian race
So
because we're the leaders of
there
the
is
country.
something I do want to say. Earlier, I said that I have not like suffered from the R word like other autistic people have. Um,
Okay.
I think that has led to certain views of mine that aren't quite in sync with the greater autistic people. And I think that's where those like bigots from the same race kind of come from. They may not have suffered the same way as the majority of the rest of the race has in the
Well,
same quite
and
ways.
sometimes they suffer as another race has, but like, they don't understand that it's not to the same extent. I was explained. Somebody was talking to me about how they felt about the subject, and they dictated this. They said, it's not necessarily a lack of opportunities, but a lack of obstacles,
Yeah.
and they're obstacles based upon your race. And I don't think that an N-word pass is a thing that is socially acceptable to me. But as I've said, it's not necessarily my choice to give and take those things. That's just my thought on the
That's your
subject.
thought. You're not the black person in this conversation. There is
Well,
none.
I'm not the person of color in this conversation. No, I'm not. But I mean, we're talking about viewpoints here, and if we're talking about suffrage, that is or not suffrage, suffering, that is a clear and cut example of perpetuation that I've been able to read up on and know about, and why it consists today. which is provable and falsifiable, mind you. Like that's not like something that you can have. It's an opinionated thing. That's a thing that's documented and dictated to be a sociological phenomenon.
So
So, I mean, freedom of speech is a great thing to talk about. But once we start actually acting like it needs to be enacted, it's used as an umbrella for bigots.
So I do want to touch into something you just mentioned, like, you did have thoughts on the N-word pass. You can have thoughts on things involving other races and stuff, but I think a lot of people don't realize that maybe nobody ever considers that their ideas might not hold a lot of people who are a lot of people don't seem to realize that a lot of their ideas might not hold water, and then they go in too strong. You can vouch your ideas a lot of your ideas, as long as you're like come in like with a light inquisitive mind of it. Like you
Well,
know
that's
you're
fair, but
probably wrong, and that you're just
even if
asking the question like with the idea
right,
that you're probably wrong. You
well,
can ask the
but
question.
that's not what I'm coming in with this one at the very least. As I said, this is a sociological thing. This is something that's ingrained. This isn't something simplistic. This is something that's complex that's been delved into. And the reason I'm coming at it the way I'm coming at it with is because it's the path of least damage. Because there's a lot of damage here that we're touching on. That it's it's generational, and we are the ones that caused it.
Also, I do want to apologize for podcast listeners. If my audio is inconsistent, I'm literally changing it as I talk because I'm using new settings. I have no idea what's good or not.
I'm also going to recommend we put a trigger warning that this is much more politically charged than our usual podcast.
Yeah, maybe
As
I'll
I'm
put up a
noticing,
little some text at the
I'd put
beginning
up
of this.
I'd put up a blurb just to let people know because the normalcy of this is not what Derailed tends to be usually. Sometimes we go into it later,
I mean, I
but
do
this
know
time we're
we
coming
brought up the Hogwarts Legacy at the end of last episode, so
right, but it's at the end usually, right? And
yeah.
it's about a game that time.
And you
But
know what? The
this time we're
Hogwarts
coming in.
Legacy thing really leads into this one, doesn't it? A
Well, I
lot of
mean,
similar stuff on that one.
you think about how the conversation starts with these people, and it's trying to make excuses. That's what it comes down to. Is they don't want to be held uh, socially accountable, and they try to act like they're being persecuted when in fact they're aiding and abetting a persecutor.
So to a certain extent, I like to look at the results of this, right? With I mentioned in the Legacy, the results of the Hogwarts Legacy fiasco is that J.K. Rowling got a lot more money to spread to fund things that hate trans
And
people,
she did it. She physically did it.
and her and all the transphobes can look at the sales of the game and be like, "Hey, see, nobody actually cares about trans people," which they do.
Like, but obviously not the fan base of Harry Potter,
Yeah.
because it's much more of a rabid fan base, unfortunately propagated by women who consider themselves feminists more often than not.
So here's
And
what I'm
it's
gonna say on this. As a massive Harry Potter fan, I love Harry Potter. I could put down Harry Potter to support the trans people. It's not that important. But you gotta look at
we
the end
talked about this
result.
last time. Well, we talked about this last time. Like, it's a level of standards. People don't have them when something that they like would be an inconvenience in losing a world that they've invested in. Their mentality is a world they've invested in is more important than a real person that you can invest in.
See, I'm gonna dab on people. I have standards. I put the game down. I did not
I
play the
haven't
fucking
touched
game.
it. Yeah, no, I didn't touch it.
Fucking
I refuse to. The gameplay itself looked great, and I don't give a shit
It,
because it
I have
supports
played
something
past
that I
Harry
have.
Potter games, and every time I would play, I would think about a game exactly like Hogwarts Legacy and how sick it would be. So,
But my point here is like I can. There are other creators that are from even earlier times that were less reductive than she has been.
and
Like
I will also like to point out, and this is big, J.K. Rowling and all of her supporters and all the transphobes that support her are in the
Turks.
UK.
Oh
and
no, they're not. They're not.
not all of them, but
They're
like
here. They're here.
the main
They're in
base of this
Africa.
is
They're
what
in
I mean to
Asia.
say is
J.K. Rowling is a worldwide phenomenon. Let me
she is a
clarify
worldwide.
with this here.
You're right, but I think sorry, a big amount of J.K. Rowling's money goes to the UK anti-trans people, and the UK anti-trans people are the
I
TERFs
mean,
who have declared they want to
initially,
kill people. So kill trans people.
and she has been known to fund reaffirmation camps.
And I would like
Or
to
sorry,
repeat that J.K. Rowling herself is not a TERF, but
yes, yes.
she has put in with those people in the past. So
she's literally a TERF, Jesse. She has said that she is engaging in a TERF war as a TERF. She is a TERF.
has she? I looked it up the other day, and I don't think that was ever said, but I don't know.
Literally said. It's all on Twitter.
Has
it's
it literally been said? Okay, I didn't see it. So I tried to be a little. I was trying to be a little nuanced that, but if you say that she has, then I guess.
No, she's straight up is dictating that the turf war is continuing constantly, and rags on people for this shit all the goddamn time.
All right.
It's unfortunately something that I gained knowledge to during the pandemic, and I kind of blew that whistle in our friend group myself. But it was unfortunate to say the least, but it wasn't surprising with all the other racially charged things that have happened.
But yeah, as I was trying to say, the results matter. When you make a racist joke and a bunch of the people who race you just insulted look offended, and all of the racists in the audience start cheering, you should really think about what joke you just made.
I mean, just look at some of the things she wrote in her books. I mean, Cho Chang is a Korean girl, but that's a Chinese name. That's racist. That means that she didn't even bother to look. She's a writer, by the way. That's important for you to do.
No, basic research. Every time I tried to do bare minimum research on J.K. Rowling to before I had this discussion, so I wasn't like making super accusations that didn't exist.
I mean,
I at least tried. I didn't apparently go super deep on it, but I at least did the bare minimum.
That I've been very invested in for a while. So to be fair, and a piece of that for me too is like the dictation of Izzy has talked to me about this at length. Goblins being an anagram for Jewish people for anti-Semites. The goblins in J.K. Rowling's world work at a money industry more often than not, and they're dictated as monsters that need to be slaves.
So I want to just re-say one thing real quick. You can be wrong and accidentally like make a mistake when it comes to like races and stuff in like your fiction and stuff, but you have to at least do your bare minimum. If you make a super obvious mistake, that's pretty bad.
Well, I mean, and it's not a mistake. It's obviously intended. That's the problem. It's like if it's a mistake and you never do it again, you apologize, you change everything about it, and you dictate with your actions that things are different, and that's not what you meant. That is different than just consistently doing the same goddamn thing over.
I think there's also, what she does. And mind you, Harry Potter is only like a half fictional world, so I'm not applying this to Harry Potter. I'm just applying this to in general. If you're like doing a fictional world and it's like a mixture of different cultures, then you can mix. That's fine, as long as as long as it's very clear that this is a fictional culture with its fictional rules. But if it's clearly like this is a Chinese culture with Chinese rules, and then you start making those mistakes, it's like,
I mean,
but
we're giving her credit for things that she doesn't do right now, though. Like we're dictating.
I'm not trying to give her credit for this. I very explicitly said this has nothing to do with Harry Potter. What I just said.
So like in terms of writing, like if you make your world with races based upon like actual world races, which she chose to do because it's the easiest.
Oh no, I said it was half fantasy. It's actual. She's actually Chinese. She's not fantasy Chinese.
Oh no, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying like anything, like the dwarves in Lord of the Rings were one of the earliest Jewish anagrams for anti-Semitism, because J.R.R. Tolkien was a famous Catholic writer. Uh, More understandable anti-Semitism at the time, unfortunately, because of the area he came from.
So
He was known to be a lot of these things. That's why the elves were considered God's chosen people, and they could go to the Forgotten Realms, or sorry, not Forgotten Realms, the Undying Lands. So, I mean, it's something that happens a lot in writing. It's just they act like she never would do it, and it's so upsetting to me that they try to gaslight people and act like she's not taking away people's rights when she actively is able to with all of the power that she has. She is considered a national treasure in the UK, and so they treat her as they treat the queen, who was also a racist. Um,
So here's something that happens a lot with dwarves in D&D. A lot of people will give dwarves a specific accent, and that's mostly fine. It's a little reductive to whatever accent you're putting in. What I like to do with dwarves is I make a joke that their accent changes every time they speak. I give them a different accent literally
I
every
mean,
time they open their
like,
mouth.
there's been a lot of like moving forward with how dwarves are depicted in media. Like the Hobbits trilogy was awful, but like showcasing that they aren't just, oh, look at the big noses and they're all money grubbing, and you know, instead of showcasing that they're inherently money grubbing, they're just not. They can look various style, like various different looks, and that's right there is a non-reductive take.
Just a little humanitism.
Well, they
Humanism is all
dictated
you
that
really
they're
need.
more about crafting and mining, which is totally respectable.
And like, there's reasons why they're about that. There's cultural reasons and environmental reasons. There's historical reasons why they would be about that. It's not just dwarves are inherently like that. No, there's a lot of reasons why
True.
they are like that.
Hold that thought one sec.
Oh, but like obviously in Tolkien's case, he did add like inherent greed to them that was very
Can you hear
not
me?
cool.
No.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, give me one sec. He called again.
Yeah, I know he called again. That's why I'm trying to talk. That's why I'm talking. Just talking. I don't want to cut out another section, so I'm just going to keep talking. And, you know, back to J.R.R. Tolkien, uh, the goblins don't really have much other than just being Jewish negative stereotypes. And, because um, I also know she does, like, the house elves, a slave race, and a lot of the writing around that is really not good. Because like a lot of people like to point to Dobby, it's like, Dobby got freed and that was a good thing, and everybody's positive about Dobby, and Dobby and Hermione go off and are like, yeah, let's free the elves, but the rest of the world treat them like crazy, including the main character Harry. Um, the other house elves treat them like they're crazy, saying that they're happy being slaves. Um, Hermione eventually gives up on it because she realized there's no, like, she eventually drops it. She doesn't like succeed at it. The freeing of house elves is treated as a bad thing in the Harry Potter universe. Books. It's not good. And then Dobby dies. Which, think about that one for you. So yeah, it's easy to, and then there's like, I guess just stuff like, um, what else am I trying to think? Um, Harry, a lot of people think that like, because like the villains are like evil Nazis who are like destroying the chosen, who are like destroying like mudbloods and stuff, is like, haha, this is anti like rich people, anti, because like there's a lot of like rich people and stuff. It's like no, this is like anti-rich people and anti like chosen people. But a lot of people forget Harry Potter is like a chosen like pure blood wizard who is super rich. He has all the money. Um and it's like yeah, let's ignore those pure-blooded uh neo-Nazis because they're bad and they suppress the mudbloods. Let's rise up this pure-blooded person because he with a lot of money. And you notice a lot of uh people who do things tend to be the purebloods. Because in the books, Hermione, she was smart, but she wasn't super capable. That was her like big flaw. Oh, hold on. Uh, I seem to have been booted out of Discord. Oh well, he'll be back. But a lot of people like don't seem to realize that Hermione is treated as not very magically capable in the books. Compared to Ron, who is dumb but is quite capable. But Ron is also a pure-blooded wizard. It's the pure-blooded wizards who are very capable in this book series. Meanwhile, the non-pure-blooded wizards, they can be smart, but they can't really do anything. Anyways, I'm gonna try to cut it here. I'll probably continue here when Joey comes back. Just give me a sec.
About
Okay, sorry, we're back. So yeah,
yeah, it
uh,
was it's knowingly like being able to make something not reductive in your writing that's important with that stuff. She obviously doesn't give a crap. Her perceptions, for some reason, like one of the reasons I don't like liberal people is they tend to like see her and be like, oh, well, she'll champion women's rights and gay people's rights somewhat. But I mean, once you reach out to like further reaches these days, you don't get that.
so I can't remember the term, but there's a term that British people that usually describes a lot of British people about and their inherent goodness. I can't remember the exact term, but uh I think and I was trying to bring a point about that while you were gone for a brief second involving Harry Potter, but I'm not good at wording when I'm not talking to somebody directly. I gotta admit, I need to work on that. Maybe I should do a podcast of just Jesse talking
I
at some
mean,
point.
maybe it's just gameplay where you talk because it might be that you can't get it working.
Yeah. Anyways, um, but there I feel like with J.K. Rowling, she's very big on people who are born a certain way are born that way. And so for her, it's very easy for her to be like a woman is born this way and has women problems, and she can champion that a lot easier than she can a trans person who is different than how they are born.
Well, but they're also not sometimes, like it's not just a 1-2 button
Oh, I
question
know.
anymore. That's
I'm
the whole
just
trick
saying
here.
what J.K. Rowling is probably thinking based on
Well, I
what I
mean,
see from her.
I guarantee you she's thinking this is why you should talk about Isabel too. She wants to own the pain. She thinks that it should only belong to her because it rectifies and dictates who she is as a person. The sad thing is here, she has not suffered all that much comparatively if we're talking about the group that she is throwing shade at.
So I do want to say everybody in the world has their own walls that they have to climb and
As I've said
problems to
before,
suffer through. And
well,
it's
like
different.
literally, it's literally the concept of it's not a question of less opportunities. It's a question of more barriers. There's more barriers for a trans woman than there is for a regular.
So I'm going to say this right now. Um my barriers as an autistic man is different than the barriers that a woman would have to deal with in society.
True, but they're
And
dictatable.
hold on, let me finish what I'm saying. Um how we climb these barriers is different for every person. Even if the barrier is the same, we can have a different way of climbing it. I don't think you should ever be reductive of someone else's barriers for having more or less barriers than you, or how.
But that's what it comes down to is she wants to own it.
Yeah.
So it obviously is what's happening. And if we're talking about like you need to do that because that's how you get back to a net sum equal. That's how we dictate what is wrong and racist and what is not. Because somebody goes through more than another as a race. That happens. That statistically happens. And it's a problem. And if we take that out of the equation, we act as if the problem does not exist when it does.
So, uh, I think I should probably reiterate my point a little bit. That doesn't mean we shouldn't try to remove the barriers when we have it, but there is a certain amount of like grace and poise that you can do when dealing with the barriers. uh,
I mean, relatively speaking.
like how you climb the barriers is different from every person, and some people do not climb those barriers the right way. At the end of the day, um, we can try to remove as many barriers as we can, but when you do come across a barrier, it will say a lot about who you are, how you deal with that barrier.
It's true. But at the same
And
time, that's
obviously, we need to like remove the barriers and help those who
and
are
that's not the
struggling
point
to
at all
climb
that I
their
was looking
barriers.
at either. Well,
I
and
know.
that's not the point at all that I was looking at here. The point isn't that people can choose to figure out how to surmount an obstacle. The point is that there are obstacles that are inherently immoral that they are erected, and
Oh
her
yeah.
dictating a wanton of ownership as a means to ostracize and criticize and vilify and
Oh yeah.
propagate abuse towards a group of people is inherently reductive.
Oh yeah.
So I'm not even questioning whether or not people have obstacles that they need to surmount, and it shows what type of character they are. What shows her character is not how she surmounts her obstacles. It is that she is owner. She is gatekeeping obstacles that others endure, and being reductive towards theirs because she has the power here. She is a white, straight woman with billions of dollars. I don't want to hear about how bad it was at Starbucks today.
So
I
I
don't give
think
a
the point I'm
shit.
trying to make with J.K. Rowling is that she has climbed her obstacle and then kicked out the ladder on top for some of the other
But
people.
she barely had an obstacle, is my point. It's
I
kind of
know, I know.
there are characters that have like, and that's why I compare it here
She
because her
rode an
acting works
elevator
together.
up and then kicked down the ladders other people are using.
So like you get now like what I mean when I'm like I'm gonna judge her obstacle climbing all day. That's
Yeah.
Jeff Bezos. Why wouldn't I judge his?
No, we
You
can
know,
judge other people's obstacle climbing. It's just, how you react to the obstacles and how other people react to you reacting to the obstacles. It says a lot about people.
I mean, people are gonna be people,
And the
and
obstacles exist whether we like them or not. And it's important to look at them and understand what's going on. And yes, to try to remove obstacles if you can. And if somebody's struggling to climb an obstacle, help them. Don't kick them.
but that's the problem. She's rich, and rich people tend to like being at the top.
Yeah, they like to be one of the few people who reach the top so that they can be like, "Ha, look at all these peasants below me," and then they kick them down when they're about to reach the top, being like, "No, you got to earn it more. You didn't take the same elevator I did, so naturally you're inferior."
It is easy to see how much she cares about people by how she will spin her narrative and shift the blame. She's very good at that. Her best writings are in her espionage attacks, where she has jumped into a melee of conversation about this subject and attempted to dictate that she is the victim while they're getting hanged.
So, um, oh my god, what was I about to say? I was about to say something and I totally forgot what it was. That's the third time that's happened in this conversation.
Well, you got to slow down your mindset. You're thinking too fast.
I know, I'm thinking too fast.
Yeah.
it was something about her writing, something about building something up. Then you said something about her writing, but I think the point I was trying to make had nothing to do with J.K. Rowling. Or well, had a little bit to do with her.
Why did it have nothing to do with J.K. Rowling when we're talking about J.K.
Oh
Rowling?
well, I wasn't directly related to her. That's why when we started talking about J.K. Rowling again, my brain snapped back and then I forgot what I was about to say.
I mean, I guess okay.
I guess. Oh well, it'll come back to me probably when I'm about to fall asleep tonight. I'll be like, God damn it, why didn't I say that?
I thought of it now.
It was a good point. It would have solved all the problems of the world.
I mean, no,
I
wouldn't.
know it would have.
She has her millions, and I will never have that, and that's how it is. And I can't change the fact that she gives
Oh
money
right, now I
towards.
remember the point I was about to make. Um, so when you're saying something wrong, and how you react to it is very how you react to when you do something wrong is very important. Um, saying sorry is not the right way. Saying sorry the right way is not easy, but it is free and it is worth doing. And obviously there are people who say sorry the wrong way and don't have any genuineness to it, but it is important and it says a lot who you are that if you mess up and do something wrong, either because you weren't thinking about it properly or you had some misguided thoughts, that you at least apologize and at least think about what you've done. Think about what you've done, god damn it.
I mean, people act like they don't want to be treated like children, and they act like big children.
Adults think about what they done. Children do not, and throw a hissy fit when people tell
No,
them to
adults
think.
don't think about what they've done. Kids are forced to think about what they've done. That's the ironic thing here is kids will think more about a thing that they've done than an adult ever will.
I know. In that way, I think kids are way more mature than adults.
I mean, that's the point is like we're in a constant state of stasis almost in terms of our mental states when we're adults. Like the only thing that changes is if the rare instance of somebody actually having epiphanies in their life. But like children, like teenagers, they're forced into a form of epiphany almost every freaking week. Like legitimately like major epiphanies. If we're talking about somebody that has to think about and change their mentality often, that's it. And we lost that superpower.
I don't think we lost that superpower. I think, like a muscle, people just don't use it as much as they should.
Well,
And
that's
then
not
they
what I mean.
degrade.
It's inherent to the kid and to the teenager, but for an adult, they need to look at something to get that. It's kind of like the drug hit doesn't hit as hard after a while.
Because
Doesn't
I'm
hit
going to
your
brag
dopamine.
about myself for a brief second. I saw something about it. I started thinking about that. I started this podcast episode to continue thinking about it deeply. So
Right,
I
but
like to
that
think
proves my
I
point.
still
You had to
hold a
see
lot there.
something. Right, but that proves my point. You had to see something to think of it.
I
My
think
point for
children
them is they
have to
don't
see
have.
something. Children don't just think
No,
of things out of nowhere as much.
their brains are a melting pot. Yes, they think of everything all at once because of all of the hormones churning in their heads. It's easier for them to think of a variety of random thoughts that never will connect and act upon them mentally far further than we do.
I mean, I think that's a little. I guess that's a fair point, but I still think like even just like when something's put in front of you, if you can think about it, that's all you really need. You don't have to be
Oh,
thinking
that's
about
not my
everything,
point here.
everything at all time. But
You
just as
you
long,
sh- you should think more about what you do. That was the whole point here, and I'm just saying
well,
we
what you
lost that
do is
ability.
right in front of you as well. So,
Relative, not necessarily.
eh, depends on your state of thinking. For
No,
me, everything I
also,
do is right in front of me.
but
I think
also
about
not.
everything I do always.
If we're talking technically here, I'm not right in front of you, and we're talking. Like that's a relative thing right there.
Well, actually, your
You had
Discord
to reach
image, in
out
which
to
I
me.
am mentally thinking of as yourself, is right in front of me. So,
Well, but that doesn't count. The point here is I'm not. You had to reach out to me over something.
so when I mean in front of you, I mean like within your thinking space. Sorry, let me
That
reiterate.
those,
If
those are
something's
not the same
inside your
thing.
thinking space, like someone's directly talking to you about it, then that's in front of you.
That's those aren't
In
the
this
same thing.
context.
Those aren't the same thing. Those aren't the same thing, Jesse.
Well, to me it is. So maybe I'm just mistalking here. I feel like I'm very much mistalking here.
I mean that's what I'm here for. Fix the gaps.
Bottom line is, I can think about the things that are told to me and shown to me and talked to me, and I can have an epiphany based on that. And a lot
But
of
your
people
brain's not going to
cannot.
function. But your brain's not going to function as much as a youth's because our brains aren't moving as much as theirs do.
I'm autistic. My brain fires on all cylinders really
Right,
badly.
right. But your hormones aren't anymore, are
I
they?
guess. Who knows?
No, no. They literally stop at 25. Your years are done.
Ah, fair
They're
enough.
done, Jesse. So, like, when hormones are firing, you have much more of a chemical imbalance, and that's inherent to being a young person.
Oh
That
well.
just is what it is. So, like, I can guarantee you that in my early to mid 20s, I had more thought progression throughout my life than I have ever had after 25, and I've lived a couple years since then. So it's apparent to me. It shows in my head like
Mm,
how the difference is. The difference is in the pudding. You can see the difference in how you talk to a young person too, like a young autistic person as opposed to an older autistic person, because their brain tends to move even faster than ours do, more
mm.
often than not.
So
Just because,
here's what for me. Um, Whenever something new is a progress to me, I try to think about it all the way to the end. And so for me, uh there's just not as much new things to think about to me.
well, I mean, it's not even just that though. Like if there is, because there's a fudge ton of new things, but your brain isn't seeking it out like it used to.
I don't know, maybe.
Oh, it's hyperfixation, but hyperfixation on everything is much more like I'm trying to get you an in on what I worked with when I worked at Lionsgate, because that's a big thing here that I'm pulling this out of, is I got to see it and feel it
Fair
at
enough.
like either way. So it's insanely interesting.
But this could also
But
be a case of you referring to your experiences versus the younger generation
hmm,
versus what I'm
I'm
probably
I'm I'm
experiencing
pulling I'm
and
pulling
thinking.
my own in. I'm
Yes.
pulling my own in, but I'm watching them as well,
No, that's
and
fine.
I'm listening to them as well. And the way and speed at which they think is faster than I currently do, but about as fast as I used to.
Hmm.
Law of averages kicks in about it up, right?
I don't know.
Because it's not just me.
My brain doesn't think like that. At least I don't feel like it does.
I mean, as
But who
somebody who
knows?
watched you a lot when we were in high school too, like, yeah, you thought a lot quicker when we were younger,
I suppose.
fast enough that you would skip up on your words way more than you do now.
Well, that's also me like learning I skip upon my words and I'm trying like I'm consciously making an effort not to skip upon my words as
Yeah,
much.
you learned.
Like that's not a case of my brain slowing down. That's a case of me like actively trying to stop my bad habits.
So actively slowing down your brain. Okay, good to know.
Oh yeah. Actually, I think that is a little bit of a case for me. I do
Yeah.
remember one of my big epiphanies to be a better person is to slow my brain down. So I have actively slowed my brain down intentionally.
Yeah.
But
I
I
know.
did that when I was like 17. So
That's
everything after
still within
that
that
is
ratio.
everything
Well,
after that
Jesse,
is
25 was what I said, remember?
I
That's
know.
when your brain stops doing the thing. That's a bit before 25.
I know it was. So if you talk about like when I actively started slowing my brain down. But I don't know.
So there
This
you
might
go.
all be like a complete outlier because I'm autistic, and autistic people can be weird like that.
Well, it's relative, but like that is something that is consistent between kids.
I
That's
sp-
just how fast. That's just what their brains do.
oh well.
That's one of the big things any sociology or psychology person will tell you when they work with kids specifically is they're a lot faster than any adult they work with.
I suppose.
And yeah, because they're always in flux. Kind of like when you constantly tear your muscle apart and rebuild it back to back.
I don't 100% agree with this, but you're more of an expert than I am. So, like the smart person I am, I'm just gonna let the expert speak.
Yeah, no,
Because
I'm
that's the
trying not. I'm dictating it as not just my experience here is my thing. That's what I want to make clear. Is if it was, then it would mean nothing. But right now, that also is kind of insulting. I shouldn't say that because you were just using your experience.
um God, I think this is something I should really tell. Like, here's the lesson on how to be smart. So, my parents once asked me why I was cooking something different than the way they taught me. It's because I was cooking in a way that what my home ec teacher taught me, who was a professional chef, and I was like, "You guys are professional chefs. I'm doing it the professional chef way." Because my way of thinking is that obviously you shouldn't like 100% always believe somebody with a uh and that, you shouldn't always 100% trust the professionals, but you should probably trust them more than the average person.
True.
And so
I
it's just
mean,
one of those things.
there's always a good amount of healthy. It it's good to have a healthy amount of skepticism. That's never going to be a wrong thing to have, but
But
the key is
healthy is
healthy.
not too much. Don't have too much skepticism. Because, like, I think to,
Yeah,
like, this is the big thing with the whole global warming thing. I don't know all the rules and things about global warming. I just know that every respectable scientist says it's true. And I trust the respectable scientists. All of them.
agree.
All of them say it. Meanwhile, the only people who
A massive majority say it,
massive majority. And the few people who don't say it tend to be are a little sketchy. So
and they
yeah,
tend to be
obvious
disreputable. Yeah.
disrespectable. So obviously I can have my like but that skepticism has to go both ways. And I've skepticism to all those scientists. I've realized that they have no, all of them around the world have no reason to lie like that. So
I mean, what would they gain? Because
yeah.
like the money in the game that already exists makes them about as much money as the game that they would attempt to get. So it would be nonsensical to be like, oh, I need to tear down the paradigm that can already
If
make me
anything,
money
I
and make
think
them
they
not
would
rich.
get more money from, I don't know, oil people who would be paying them to say the opposite.
True, oil barons exist.
And they will pay to silence it. And oh boy, look at all these disreputable people trying to say the opposite thing. I wonder where they got, why they're saying that. They seem like they have ulterior motives.
I mean, more often than not, you can find their motive within a lot of their separate dissertations. If we're talking about scientists, which is
Well, there's also the scientific
something.
method, which is its own massive discussion to have.
Well, I mean, the big thing that we have to dictate here, though, is consensus exists for a reason.
Yes, there's a
Consensus
reason.
exists
There's a reason why
to,
we believe that the reason we can breathe is because of invisible gas. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
So there's a
It's,
reason why consensus believes is consensus always like 100%? No, but if it's like 99.9%, you might as well just stick with it. I put my bets in the 99%, you know, when it comes to consensus.
yeah, I can agree with that.
Betting against the 99% is just stupid. It's just stupid. And you can have discussions about it, but never bet against it.
Well, it'd be a waste of your time,
Waste of your
and it'd be a
time. It'd
waste
be
of
a waste
money.
of other time. It would can actually hamper people.
Yes, no, it's getting in the future's way, and that is the fault of whoever chooses that path.
So you know, as a generally smart person, the generally smart thing is to just accept what smarter people than you say. Is basically
I
it.
mean, relatively.
Relatively.
Explore what they say and accept it once it's
Don't
deemed
don't
correct.
be brainless about it, but don't overthink it too much.
Yeah,
Don't
I agree.
overthink it. It is a very important part.
I
Because I
agree.
guarantee you, if you're overthinking it, you ain't smart enough to figure it out.
Yeah, no, you wouldn't be smarter than a fifth grader at that point. I agree.
There are some things that ain't worth your brain power because it's too complicated to figure out. And obviously, you can get a basis idea of it. You know, the basis is usually you can usually be smart enough to figure it out, but you will never be as smart as those smart people. If you were, you'd be a scientist yourself.
And that's the tricky part, isn't it?
That's the tricky part, isn't it?
It's very easy to think that you're the smartest person in the room, and most often you're not gonna be, unless you are a leader in your field or what have you. And that has to come from, ironically, consensus.
Well, that's another
Most
thing.
often people
You
think
can be
you're
a
right.
leader in your field. That don't mean you're a leader in the other fields.
Oh, that too. I mean, a good example. That one chick, I don't remember her name. She's the one with the glasses in Big Bang Theory. She's anti-vax. She's a neurosurgeon. She's anti-vax.
Yeah. I think in
Uh,
real
they're
life
just
is.
people.
Have you seen some of Neil deGrasse Tyson's tweets? Guy can be really dumb sometimes.
Oh yeah, no, like I mean, there's often times where I'm like, that's a very Jordan Peterson tweet you made there.
And it's like,
And there's a
yeah,
lot of times when he's exceptionally intelligent,
yeah.
but it's often when it's talking about space or physics or thermodynamics, anything that's a base science.
Yeah, intelligence is a spectrum, not a line.
Yeah, yeah, no, there's a lot of things that he said that is correct, and then there's a good amount of things that he said that is just wrong, like the social sciences, the biological sciences. A majority of them are correct, but there are some that are just meh. He's not very good at. A good example is gender sciences and sex science. He has no concept. Or he's stuck in the old pathways, ironically dictating what a paradigm shift is while not recognizing when one has occurred.
And you know what? If he just every time he would open his mouth be like, "I'm no expert on this," I would have a lot more respect for him because then he'd at
He
least
does
be.
tend to say that pretty often these days.
I think he kind of learned his lesson, which is one
Well,
of
well,
the.
only verbally though. Like you said, he tweeted something, and he doesn't do it in his tweets.
I guess he's kind of learning his lesson. He's old. He doesn't
Yeah,
have those
yeah.
hormones
Don't
working
give
for him.
him, don't give him some, and he's still fun to listen to. I mean, he's not at the level of Jordan Peterson
You know
where
what?
he's
I
just
will
good.
say, listening to him, I don't think he's an asshole. At least
He's not trying to be.
he's not trying to be. And there, you can usually tell the difference listening to people.
Yeah, and as I said, the Jordan Peterson thing, he is just a piece of garbage.
Ugh.
Uh, for those who don't know, Jordan Peterson is a he's what I would call a virtue signal extraordinaire for a majority of MGTOW members and uh, overt conservative and libertarian focal point peoples, who dictates various conspiracy theories as being true. And he's used to own the libs, as it were, alongside his boyfriend, Tim Pool, and Ben Shapiro.
Jordan Peterson is like the epitome of people who do not think. Like,
He's a fucking family therapist. What he's good at is not science, but he talks as if he knows science. He can deal with family drama. That's his dictation. Family post traumatic stress disorder, family oriented stuff. But he doesn't have a specialization in anything outside of that.
yeah.
Like his doctorate is in psychology, but only that psychology, and he acts as if it's in all forms of psychology.
As somebody who's tried to who researches psychology on the regular, there's a lot of aspects to it. You do not have enough time to master it all, my dude.
No, but you could like specializing in one. You'd imagine he'd be a total moron, and he is. Like he'll throw things out
So,
that mean nothing.
intelligence is like your muscles. Some people are born with more of it than others, but you can still work on it in certain areas. If you do 10,000 push-ups, you're gonna eventually get pretty strong in those very specific push-up muscles. Intelligence
It's
can be like that too, where if you research and study a specific thing enough, put the work in, even if you're kind of dumb, you can figure it out. If you put the
it's
effort
true. I
into it.
mean, it takes work, but I mean,
Probably more work if
sometimes
you're dumb, but you could still put the effort into it.
some people go to school just to re redictate what they want to be true and not what is.
Yep.
Jordan wanted to be the smartest guy in the room, and he is the smartest crazy person in the room.
Yeah. The rooms he selects, he's the smartest person.
Oh, I mean, he's gone into a room with like a well-known atheist pundit who totally decimated him.
Oh yeah.
I don't like the guy. I don't like the guy he sat with, but like the points he made were irrefutably just demolishing Jordan, who's one of those people who's like, well, you can't say if you saw God if you took hallucinogenic drugs, and it's like you can't dictate it as a fact that you saw it either. You can. I'm not saying you didn't have an experience, but like personal experience is not proof.
Yeah.
So I mean, Jordan Peterson and J.K. Rowling are cut from very similar cloth to me in terms of what the damage they do. While they both utilize their power and their supposed knowledge basis as a weapon to harm people in under the guise of enriching people. And I wish nothing but the worst for him. And I wish nothing but the worst for her. I don't like them. I don't want good things to happen to pieces of shit.
Yeah.
Pretty basic for me, at least.
That's nothing to say about our former president, but we'll talk about him some other time. He's an entirely different podcast.
I mean, we gotta wait to see what happens because I don't want to just become an update. Because like, there's a lot to talk about, but right now there's too much happening.
Uh,
Yeah, it's not worth talking about until we actually get answers.
so yeah, I guess the theme of this entire episode is just watch what you say and think about it. God damn it, think about what you say, please.
Please.
And,
Like,
and just try not to piss people off for the sake.
If you don't trust something somebody says, that's your deal. But like,
pissing people off is for people you don't like.
Right.
I guess it's something I want to say.
As if you want to act as if a thing you've said is fact, be sure you can actually back it up with something that's falsifiable.
I guess there is one more point I want to say. And this is something that always pisses me off about a lot of races.
Right.
Just own up to if you hate a group of people. I hate Catholics. I will make fun of Catholics all day. Fuck the Catholics, the child touching bad assholes. I will own up to this. And just own up to the fact that you're being hostile to a group of people if you make fun of them
for a specific reason. Yeah, not just because you think that you're right, but because you want them to be wrong, which are two different things.
Just recognize, like, I started this with a VTuber. She could recognize that she doesn't even try to recognize the fact that she, like, upset people. Recognize that you upset and pissed people off, and that you were doing it regardless of what even if you think you're being funny, well, if you're being funny is actively hurting people, just don't do it.
And it's also like if the people you're making fun of aren't laughing, like unless they're an actual bigoted hate group, it's not a joke.
hmm
It's intended to harm, obviously, at that point.
Oh well, joke to a certain extent is relative, but at the same time, it's like, who do you want it to be relevant to? If you make a joke and all the racist people in the audience are laughing and defending you, you should really think about that really hard.
That or you just are a racist.
Yeah, you're there or you are just a racist. Pick one. You're either ignorant or an asshole. Pick one. You're either ignorant or an asshole.
Unfortunately, unfortunately,
And stick with it. If you're ignorant, apologize, pick up the slack, think about it, do some meditation on what you've done, and then apologize. If you're an
I
asshole, own
mean,
up to it. At least own up to being an asshole.
uh,
God forbid. I still won't like you, but at least I will understand you to a certain extent. I will at
I
least understand you and
I mean, outside of personal preference here, I do think that there is something to be said for somebody who is true to themselves, no matter what it is.
yes.
But regardless of that, that aside, respect and admiration are two different things. You can respect that somebody believes something, even if it's wrong, but you can hate what they believe at the same time,
Yeah.
which is unfortunate that that has to be a dictation.
The,
But
the
after
wormy
everything that's
people
happened,
who obviously are racist but will refuse to admit that they're racist are the ones that piss me off the most.
then they'll try to flip the script and dictate that we're focusing on race more than they are, so that we're racist. It's something like deflection. It's deflection,
It's
and
deflection.
it's them trying not to be. They act as if it's persecution. It's not. It is a social consequence which happens when you're a piece of garbage,
Well, I think to
and
a
it's
certain
good.
extent, and this is another thing, the fact that they deflect or like try not to open up to it means that I think somewhere in their brain they know what they're doing is wrong or is at least perceived as wrong. So it's like
Oh, yeah.
they know that their beliefs are not right.
Or at the very least that it does not fit within, because like I guarantee you that like they're not right might not even come into their head. It could easily be, I think that this is right and the world is wrong, but
And
I need to hide from the world and that's why I'm persecuted, which is a really backwards way of thinking of things when you want other people to suffer because of you.
And if you are actually being persecuted for the by the world, you should be open about it and fight against it with your words.
But like persecution is not dictating or judging people based on certain things,
Obviously,
but
but
instead, yeah, like a good example, Gina Carano, uh, a was a good actor before the extremely anti-Semitic dictations and the comparison of conservatives to Jewish people in Nazi Germany. Uh, wow, what a tone deaf person! They have a majority of the power right now, and when I say that, I don't just mean in the judicial branches, but like yes, in the judicial branches, they own the House and the Supreme Court, but like in the United States today, but also in a vast majority of the corporations that would lobby for things. So, I mean, where's their point?
hey
She
Joey,
also ignored the
you
dictation.
still like Kanye's music? I know you were somewhat of a Kanye fan.
I I don't listen to his current stuff. I listened to the old stuff before he started saying some batshit insane shit stuff.
Fair enough.
Like I listened to the one that sampled Daft Punk. I still listen to that one. Stronger. That's old school. But current Kanye, not a big fan. I think he's absolutely nuts.
Oh yeah, but
I do like current Miley Cyrus though. Her music is phenomenal. She sounds like Blondie,
I feel like that's
rock singer from the 80s.
a little derailed though.
Well, I mean that's the point, isn't it?
Yeah, I know, but We at least have to keep it. If we're doing the politically charged episode, we might as well keep it on the politically charged stuff.
Okay. Why is she dictated as a failure if she enjoys partying and doesn't have anybody give a shit about her?
So why is Miley Cyrus a failure if she enjoys
No,
partying?
why is she considered one if it's just her partying and her dealing with overt expectations from a society that deems that girls need to be pretty and sweet?
So, um, honestly, failure is subjective. I never thought she was a failure.
Oh, failure is subjective, but the law of averages here, buddy. Our opinion
You're
doesn't
pulling that one.
matter.
Okay, so I think the idea is a lot of people a lot of people look up to people in power. I think a lot of the subjects we were just talking about involves this. So like when they see her being like doing a really sexualized music video or something, uh a lot of people, at least a lot of puritan people, like jump on there and like, oh my god, she's spreading a sexualized message to everyone.
What do you
And
think it actually is when they do it? Because that's a pretty generic thing for even specifically. Let's talk about like child stars, but like Disney stars in especially to do. That's not uncommon. So why do you think that is?
because I think it actually affected her sales and her future. That like
I
criticism.
I think you're half right,
I think I'm
but I
half right.
think that you're on the right track.
Yeah, I think I know. I will reiterate the thing I just said. I have not thought about this thoroughly because I'm not a big Miley Cyrus fan like you are. So I will
No, I
reiterate that I have not
I've only
had
liked her
strong
current
thoughts
stuff.
about this.
I haven't I This is all thoughts about like just child stars in general that's I'm pulling from here. I'm not even just fixating on one person. Uh
So I
so
mean, obviously, like how much you're being in this kind of industry, it's how much people are actually paying attention to you. And so it's also like very easily like if a lot of people are paying attention to you, uh even if it's as long as it's not hurting your sales, I won't even say even if it's negative, as long as it's not hurting your sales, that's a success. If it's boosting your sales, that's a success. If people are paying attention to you or not paying attention to you and it's hurting your sales, that's a failure.
now, do you want me to pull apart what you said and showcase that you've kind of been manipulated by a capitalist society real quick
To be
and
fair, you
tell
made
you
this
the
exact argument with video games at before, so
that's true, but this is person to person. This isn't a group. So, my point here is you went directly for the money. What about her do you think made her change her music? Because
I
I
think
said you're half right. I said you're half right.
I
What do
think
you
for
think?
her specifically, I think she just wanted to be herself. She just didn't want to put up the facade anymore, and people did not appreciate that she had a facade up in the first place.
So I'll give you my take now. So people who are stifled tend to act out in their teens because that's when all the hormones are running, right? Girls' hormones tend to kick out a little earlier
Oh,
than
we're going
males.
back to the
Uh,
hormones.
no, this
I
actually
know, it's a
works
different
in
one.
play here. But you look at how like she was in her mid to late 20s by the time she even got to do any of this. She didn't get a chance. A big piece of child stars and Disney stars, specifically the ladies, it tends to be too, is it's kind of like when you force a girl into a costume and say you have to be chaste your entire life. You can't emote the way you
So
want
it
to. You
kind
have
of is the
a certain way
facade,
you
like
act,
I
a
just
certain way.
said.
Well,
Even though
but
it's
like
not like
it's
her
not about the
facade.
money. But it's not about the money. It's about the emotion. That's the difference here. That's why I'm like you went to the money first, and that's why I was like you were half right.
Yeah, that's when I brought like thinking about it a little bit more. That's when I brought up the facade. I was like, okay, thinking about it a little bit. I was like, it's probably the
A,
facade.
a comparative choice for these things, like people who actually choose to do things like this, are wrestlers. wrestlers choose to do that.
Hmm.
But like, it is considered one of the hardest jobs in the world. Wrestlers have the biggest death ratio of any sport in the world. There's no argument about that.
Well, I think
And it,
another industry that very much reminds me is like always the idol industry from Japan. Holy
the
smokes!
idol industry in Japan, yes, I can agree with that.
And to a
But
certain
their
extent,
culture
bringing
is,
it back to the beginning, VTubers.
I mean, VTubers, they tend to choose that life themselves. That's kind
Well,
of like
they
professional wrestling.
also are a lot looser onto what they can be compared to a lot of the others.
Yes,
So,
like, I mean, if anything, it gives them more opportunity to do things. Like Iron Mouse is a good example. She would never have been able to do anything unless she was a part of this community.
I'm
That is a
also
very
pretty
unfortunate thing
sure
I have
she's
to
not
say.
like faking who she is in any way. I don't think
Oh
she
no,
is.
no.
She
There's a
she might be
majority.
like playing it up a little bit, but I don't think she's like faking
No, she's
herself.
no, she's not. The disease that she has is very real and very uh and everything that I've looked into reciprocates that it is factual.
And then I think I was watching a Connor stream where he mentions that like she definitely plays up how hyperactive she is, but she is like a hyperactive person, so it's like she
Yeah,
plays
no,
up
no,
her
like,
she plays up her personality to the extreme, but it's not
oh,
fake.
and to flip that, Connor will say, "Oh, I feel so sick today. Oh, I feel like crap. Oh, I just want to go to sleep." And then she'll get on stream and be how she is,
Yeah.
which is, it makes her happy to do. So I'm not going to knock that variety of it. Like, it's definitely something that, like, if you were to see it in any other VTuber that had a different dictation to them, it would be a little bit more.
So I think I mentioned I wanted to like try VTubing a little bit. Um, I'm not gonna join an agency like ever because I can't fake myself like ever, and I don't want to do that ever. If I become a VTuber, I'm gonna do it for fun, and I always try to be like,
Well,
uh,
the agency
I know they help a
assigns,
lot.
they don't assign you what you have to be like. You build your own character and be yourself, and then they grab you as yourself. That's the thing to keep in mind here, is like, sure, you have a brand to live up to, but I've never heard of a VTuber in a majority of the ones, at least in America, that would ever do that.
Hmm.
At least not yet. It's been, VTubing isn't very new, or it isn't very old. I'm
I
sorry.
don't know. I've heard some
It,
stories of some VTubers who are very like toxic behind the stream and stuff.
oh, I'm sure, but like, if you look at like V Shoujo, for example, a majority of them are not.
I might be mentioning that the R word person might have been a V Shoujo person.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's why I said a majority.
Yeah.
And that's why I was mentioning it doesn't matter if they're connected to the other ones, because it's a business and they can just fire them.
I guess.
The only reason the majority of those V Shoujo people play together is because of the business aspect. But if we're going to talk about who actually gives a crap about each other in the V Shoujo line, it's Nyan, Aethel, and Iron Mouse.
One of those three might have defended the person saying the R word.
It's probably Aethel.
Nope.
Oh, is it Nyan?
Yeah.
Oh. She'll probably get stern talking too.
Well, don't defend people like that.
No, I agree. She should get a stern talking to for that.
I guess the other Feast Shoujo manager, I'll just mention. Silverveil mentioned something that people are calling backstabbing to Iron Mouse, but I heard what it was. I'm like, it might just be social anxiety, not actual backstabbing. She mentioned how Iron Mouse it hadn't called her in 7 months, so she doesn't necessarily feel like they're still friends. I'm just like, I've had that feeling with my friends before. I know that feeling. It's not like hostility towards Iron Mouse. It definitely comes from a bit of social like confusion, because social stuff is confusing. It's hard to understand what people are thinking, and I get anxiety.
And she's also moving into a home where other people have to move her.
It's very easy to be like, oh, I haven't talked to this person in a while. Does he still think of me as a friend? And then,
Yeah.
meanwhile, I talk to that person after a couple months. It's like, oh no, we just haven't talked in a while. We're still friends.
Oh yeah.
But it's easy to
No,
be
I
like,
feel
I
that.
don't think we're friends anymore.
When it's only 7 months, you got to imagine that every time she talks to people that do that, like she cares the most about. And I'll be real, that's Connor. She'll talk to him all the time. That is Nyan. That is Athel. She'll talk to them all the time. And then she has a talk show that she has to be a part of, and then she has to produce albums. Then she has to voice act. Then she has to take all her medication and still have time to stream.
Yeah, busy people. People get busy.
Oh, and she's uber sick. So like, if you're really gonna give her shit for not finding time for you in 7 months over that stuff, call her. Why do you expect her to call you? Call her.
I do agree, but it's just one of those things where it's like,
Petty,
I can understand where
not
she's
you.
coming from too.
But
But
it's petty.
obviously, she didn't like rag on her a lot. I think people are like reading into it way too much. Is basically what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
Because she had like one line where she's like, maybe we're not friends, I don't know. And then it's like, well, obviously people heard that and was like, oh my god, they're not friends, she backstabbed him, oh my god, it's all horrible. I'm like, calm down, guys.
I mean, like the fans are very rabid usually in
Oh,
the VTuber scape. To be fair, they're there for the same reason they tend to go to Amaranth's streams, just for just like the point at the end of the day for the streamer themselves tends to be different.
oh yeah.
But it's still a new medium too. Like it's barely 3 years old,
Um,
so give it time to cook.
we gotta end here. I gotta go to bed. It's late.
Okay, gotcha.
Sorry. I know this is a lot of this conversation may not have been cooked. I just heard the thing and I decided I had to talk about it. So I dragged Joey away. I was like, Joey, we have to talk about this right now. So
No, I
if
got
this
you. I got
conversation, if for people in the podcast who are still here, if you even existed in the first place, who are still here, seem to look confused about why this video had a few cuts and why, you know, Joey sounds tired. It's because I literally pulled this one out of my ass.
Yeah, and pulled me out of bed.
So yeah, just
But there you go.
all
That
right.
was probably the only pure politics and media charged podcast that you and me have ever done.
Eh. I mean,
I
again, we
think we
haven't
meant
shied away from it, and I do want to talk about shit that it's on my
that's
brain.
fair. That's fair.
Oh, video
Yeah, no,
games.
I'm just like I don't think we. Damn.
Listen, before you say, any of you say, get this politics shit out of my video game stuff, everything is politics. Everything is politics, including video
Mario
games.
Sunshine is Mario Sunshine is a dictation on
We
communist
literally
Russia.
talked about Hogwarts Legacy and how important it was, and how important that was part of our discussion. It's
Mario
all.
Sunshine is a dictation on communist Russia.
Oh, yeah. It's all important. It all feeds into each stuff. Politics is everything, and everything is politics.
Yeah.
And everything is influenced by it. Everything influences it. Yeah. So,
Final
the
Fantasy
way we
VII
think
is
about this stuff.
angels and climate change.
Yeah. If you you know, maybe you'll take some of the stuff when you're playing a video game and one of the characters drops the R word really hard, you'll think about this episode. Because then it'd
Or
be very
you'll,
important.
I mean, or you'll just continue to say it, which is unfortunate if you choose that.
Just as
Just know I'm judging you heavily.
no, I meant not the person who's playing. I mean somebody in the game drops the R
Oh,
word.
I mean the person's. I'll judge them heavily.
Oh yeah, but like if you're like if Mario comes in and just drops the N word, maybe you could think about it. Why that's messed up.
Yeah.
Which actually
Why?
reminds me of the time Mario accidentally said a slur in a tweet. Accidentally.
Yeah. Yeah. Or
That
how
was
about
funny.
every time Vince McMahon just casually said the N word?
Ugh.
Just like John Cena in the mid 2000s.
Anyways, we get off topic. We should not derail ending the podcast. See y'all.
It's their superpower. Bye.
Bye.